Did you know that a simple 10mm piece ruined one of McLaren's best weekends and completely changed the Formula One World Championship? The 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix, one of the most anticipated events on the calendar, music went from being a night of glory for McLaren to an unprecedented sporting nightmare. Everything seemed to be aligned for the British team to celebrate a double podium, consolidating its lead in the Constructors' Championship. Lando Norris had crossed the finish line in second place with an impeccable performance, music, while Pastri secured a solid fourth place after an intense tactical battle in the last part of the race. But what no one expected was that minutes after the checkered flag, chaos would break out in the paddock. Music. The lights had barely gone out on the most extravagant street circuit of the year when the FIA technical inspectors burst into the McLaren box. What seemed like a routine procedure quickly turned into a technical emergency operation. The technical delegates, led by Joe Bauer, focused on a very specific area of the car: the famous skid blocks, protection plates located under the chassis, vital for controlling that the cars do not roll too close to the ground. This rule is not a simple formalism. It is one of the most important technical barriers to avoid covert aerodynamic traps. Tension grew alarmingly when McLaren attempted to limit the outside visibility of the garage by placing screens, a move considered illegal in that context, which further set off alarms among the stewards. At that moment, the entire paddock began to murmur. Something serious was happening. The official measurements showed a devastating result. Both cars were below the regulatory minimum of 9mm thick in the rear skids. This meant a direct violation of Article 3. 5. 9 of the Formula One technical regulations. There was no room for appeals or interpretations. It was an objective, clear infraction with automatic consequences. Music, disqualification of both pilots. The news fell like a bomb. McLaren's engineers and mechanics were shocked. While managers tried to manage the media, music impact, that was already going viral on networks and specialized media, the celebration stopped dead. The trophies were returned, and music, the race classification, was completely changed. George Russell, who had crossed the finish line in fifth place, was automatically promoted to the podium. Other drivers gained unexpected positions. The championship, which seemed to lean more and more towards Woking, took a dramatic turn. Beyond the result on the track, this disqualification touched something deeper: the technical credibility of one of the most consistent teams of the current era. McLaren had just won the Constructors' title in 2024 and started 2025 as the undisputed leader with a revolutionary car, a young and competitive driver duo, and a technical direction headed by Andrea Stella that seemed impeccable. And yet, all that prestige was called into question by an infraction that, in the words of many experts, is so basic that it seems impossible to commit at that level. Formula One, with its surgical precision and strict regulations, is unforgiving. And what happened in Las Vegas was a brutal reminder that even at the pinnacle of motorsport, 1 millim can mean the difference between glory and disaster. McLaren's technical tragedy in Las Vegas was not the product of bad luck or a specific error. It was a perfect storm built over days, decisions, and circumstances that combined revealed one of the most unexpected fragility of a team that until then had seemed untouchable. What happened under the cars of Norris and Pastri can not only be explained by the physical wear of a part, but by a whole chain of strategic choices that ignored or minimized a critical risk: music, the contact of the car with the ground. To understand it, you have to go to the heart of modern aerodynamics in Formula One. Since the 2022 regulations reintroduced ground effect as the axis of performance, music control over the height of the car has been one of the most sensitive and exploited elements by engineers. Lowering the car as much as possible allows for greater aerodynamic suction to be generated that glues the car to the ground without the need for large spoilers. This advantage translates directly into lap times. Music, but the regulations impose a physical barrier: the famous skid blocks or skates music, which wear out when rubbing against the asphalt. If these skates, especially the rear ones, were more than allowed, the FIA interprets it as an intentional violation of minimum height, and that's exactly what happened with the MCL39. McLaren, obsessed with regaining straight speed against Red Bull and Ferrari, configured Music its cars with an extremely low ride height. The goal was to maximize ground effect and reduce drag, sacrificing some comfort over bumps on the circuit. But Las Vegas is not a normal circuit. It is a brutally irregular urban layout with poorly leveled street asphalt, bounces, undulations, and violently unstable braking zones. A track designed more for spectacle than for technical consistency. The Music result, accelerated wear, invisible during the race, but fatal when undergoing post-RA scrutiny. Furthermore, the MCL39 was developed under a very aggressive technical concept, Music, especially on the front axle, with an extreme anti-dive type suspension geometry. This means that when braking, the car reduces its vertical inclination, preventing the front end from sinking. Music. The problem is that this design, combined with a softer rear end, transfers more load and pressure to the rear skids, the very ones that ended up below the legal limit. McLaren knew it. Already in 2024, they had had similar problems, although without sanctions, and they worked throughout the preseason to reinforce that area of the car, but in Las Vegas, they weren't conservative enough. Another key point was the recent ban by the FIA on the use of satellite skid blocks, small additional protection elements that some teams use to prevent wear of the main plate. This technical directive came into effect just a week before the Grand Prix and was driven paradoxically by a complaint from Red Bull. McLaren, which had never used this solution, saw its protection options reduced without fundamentally modifying its low-height concept. For many, that directive was the first domino to fall in the chain that led to disqualification. And as if all this wasn't enough, the race strategy didn't help either. In the final laps, Norris was forced to save fuel extremely. This changed the behavior of the car, forcing it to brake earlier and longer, modifying the weight distribution and increasing the contact of the car with the asphalt in unexpected areas. That unexpected dynamic could have been the final blow to the rear skates. In short, McLaren was not a victim of chance. He was a victim of his own technical commitment, of his confidence in a design that did not forgive even a miscalculation. In a sport where precision is measured in millimeters and milliseconds, Music. What happened in Las Vegas is a chilling reminder that even the best can fall for not anticipating a variable, for not adjusting a piece in time, for not thinking that a circuit of lights and casinos could hide the biggest trap of the year. The shadow that fell on McLaren after the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix goes far beyond a simple technical penalty. Music. It is a silent earthquake that affects the very pulse of the 2025 championship, and that opens the door to political maneuvers that will shape the rest of the season. From the moment the FIA technicians detected that both British team cars had exceeded the minimum wear limit allowed on the rear skids by less than 9 mm, as stipulated in Article 3.5.9e of the technical regulations, the domino effect was activated. The track results that until seconds before were celebrated as a double success. A second place for Lando Norris and a fourth for Oscar Pastri, Music, began to creak under the threat of disqualification. The key here is not only what will happen with that specific result, but Music, how this file reopens the fight for the drivers' and constructors' titles. In simple terms, if McLaren loses the points scored in Las Vegas, then the championship landscape changes. According to specialized sources, in that scenario, Max Verstappen, winner of the race, would Music see his distance from Norris cut to just 24 points and would be tied with Pastri Music in second place. For McLaren, which had arrived in Las Vegas with a large lead and a season that seemed on track, this represents a brutal break. At the team level, the impact is twofold. On the one hand, there is the blow of authority, a team that leads the championship and that has historically been synonymous with reliability losses technical, credibility in one fell swoop. Rivals not only observe the results, but also the cracks in the strategy, in the interpretation of the rules, and risk management. On the other hand, a source of tension opens internally. Questions that could previously be considered secondary. How many skates were worn out? What was the safety margin? Now they acquire a critical dimension. Was it a calculated margin that failed? Is it assumed that the team knew about it and let it go? Or was it simply a serious tactical lapse? Music. And we cannot ignore the political part of the paddock. In a championship where every tenth matters and every regulation can be reinterpreted, other teams are watching closely. The fact that McLaren was at the technical limit that weekend sends a clear message. In modern Formula One, the regulations are not just a set of rules. They are a battlefield. Builders have to balance innovation, performance, and regulatory risk. Music. Any crack can be exploited. The stewards, the FIA technicians, and the rivals are all attentive to the slightest failure. The possibility of McLaren losing points from the podium in Las Vegas also opens up a strategic question. How is the team going to react in the two remaining Grand Prix of the season? With the lead reduced with the pressure back on the chasers, McLaren will have to rethink its technical and racing approach. It's no longer just about winning. Now it will not fail. Music. In this scenario, slight errors become capital. And now we want to open the debate with you. Do you think the FIA was fair in disqualifying Norris and Pastri? Or do you think that given the circumstances of the circuit, music, they deserved a more proportional sanction? To what extent should teams take risks with their technical setup in search of absolute performance? And music, you. How would you have managed the race from the wall if you were Andrea Stella? Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.